Hello, my name is James D'Souza, and I'm the host of Self-Awareness is Your Secret Weapon, where I take one idea from the world of self-development and make it actionable so that you can use it right now. Before we get into season 1, episode 5, all about habits, I want to mention the Mind Journal. They are available at mindjournals.com, and this is a journal for men or the men in your life to develop a journaling practice. I've found journaling to be so powerful for articulating my emotional state and keeping me on an even keel. The Mind Journal structure has made it really easy for me to start it, but also maintain it and keep it going. They're available at mindjournals.com. This week's theme is one of the, I think, most popular topics in the world of self-development at the moment, and that is habits. So in today's episode, what I'm going to do is go over the three main influences in the world of habits that I think there are, go over some of their ideas, also give some background about what habits actually are and how to think about them. And then throughout, as I explain these ideas, I'll give some specific examples in the way I've used them and go from there. I invite you to start thinking about how you could apply the idea of habits. So the first thing about habits is relates to our brain. Our brains are prediction machines to help us survive. That's it. The more they take in a load of data, our brains analyze it and they make predictions about the world to keep us safe. That's what it's all about. The other thing about the brain is it's very energy intensive. So all the stuff, all our energy from food or whatever, a lot of it goes to keeping our brain functioning. That means anything that can save energy, anything that can reduce how much we use our brains is going to make life easier. So that's why we want to be able to make reliable predictions. Habits allow us to do that. They simplify all the data coming in and they allow us to predict what we can do next and then save energy that way. It frees up energy to be able to deal with whatever else is happening. That's kind of the background context of habits. So the three main people I want to talk about are in the order of which I came across their ideas. First one is a book called The Power of Habit. That's by a guy called Charles Dewey. This is a bit more of I think a business approach, a business type book, although he uses lots of real life examples from sport too. One of the big ones from an American football team, an American football coach, and the way he used habit to improve the teams. So the way Charles Duhigg describes a habit is that a habit is made up of three things: a cue, a routine, and a reward. What that means is something happens that sets the action. So there's something that happens, the trigger, that's the cue, the routine is the action, and the reward is what we get from completing that action. For example, when I'm on my way home from work, I feel a bit hungry, so I drive into the petrol station and I buy some chocolate and I eat the chocolate on the way home whilst listening to music or podcasts, and I feel good. So the cue is I feel a bit tired and I'm leaving work. The action is going into the petrol station and buying some chocolate, and the reward is feeling good on my way home. So that's a kind of simple example. Of course, you can break it down even smaller than that. That's a kind of big set of actions that go together. So that's author number one, Charles Duhigg, The Power of Habit. Author number two, the second book that I read that I think is one of the best self-development books that I've come across recently, is James Clear's Atomic Habits. Now, what he says is that a habit is made up of four things: a cue, a craving, the response, and the reward. Okay, so similar to the previous one, but the cue is it obvious what's happening? Something triggers it. The craving is that it evokes some kind of emotional response, some kind of drive that needs sorting out. And then the response is the action. What am I going to do to reduce the craving? And the reward is the kind of like the reinforcer, the feeling, the effect of the action that I take. So an example of this might be, I pick up my phone. Then the craving is, oh, I'll just check social media really quickly. The response is tapping on Instagram or Facebook or whatever it is and scrolling through. And the reward is, yay, I feel like I've caught up. I feel like I'm in communication with people. Now, of course, social media isn't great. Of course, social media apps are designed to keep reinforcing that structure. They cue something, they provoke a craving, they get us to take action with a response, and then there's a reward. So this, again, similar structure can work the same way with seeing notifications, seeing the little red dot or blue dot or whatever it is. Oh, that's a cue. So the craving is, I really want to check it. The response is checking it and scrolling, doom scrolling. And then the reward is, oh, I've checked it, I'm fine, I feel good. Let me just go again. So the social media apps and some apps are designed to keep reinforcing that structure. So that's the second structure. And you can apply that to cue, routine, reward from Charles Dewey. But James Clear's cue, craving, response, reward. Very similar. He also calls them the 4 laws of behavior change. So you can actually, and this is the core of what all these ideas about habits really are. You can apply these ideas to your own life to remove bad habits or create good habits. So worth considering. The third book is a book called Tiny Habits by a guy called BJ Fogg. Now, Charles Dewey is a journalist. James Clear is an entrepreneur, author, writer, explorer, adventurer kind of guy. And he speaks as well. Very interesting guy. But BJ Fogg is a Stanford professor, Stanford social scientist. So he's taken a scientific view and studied habits and come up with a model that he calls BMAP. And the way that's explained is B equals MAP. B for behavior is a combination of motivation, ability, and prompts. So, and he draws it on a graph that looks like a curve like that. So if there's 2 axes like that, he draws it like that. And the idea is that he says that when your motivation is high and your ability is high, you don't need much prompting to take action. Equally, if your motivation is low but your ability is high, then you might not need a lot of prompting to take action. This model is interesting because it takes into account how motivated you are and how you can actually create motivation. Now, the other thing that BJ Fogg suggests is that habits have recipes. And he says that a recipe is made up of 3 things. After a particular action, I will take a particular action, and to wire that particular action in, I'm going to do something positive. He calls it an emotion called, he wants to create a new emotion actually called shine, which he calls feeling good, some intentional thing that you do to make yourself feel good, that makes you feel good, that will actually reinforce the habit loop. So he calls it a recipe. So for example, after I wake up, I will say, today's going to be a great day. And then to wire that habit in, I will smile to myself, whatever it is. So, and that's something I do every day, actually. It's become an ingrained habit. And the smiling to myself, the celebration, he says you can use fist bumps, you can smile to yourself, you can think of something really nice that makes you smile. That feeling reinforces that action and actually allows the whole habit loop to continue. So that's the third author, the third kind of idea. So you've got 3 people here. First one, Charles Dewey, journalist, wrote The Power of Habit. The second one, James Clear, wrote Atomic Habits. And Stanford scientist BJ Fogg wrote Tiny Habits. So 3 very powerful books. My favorite is James Clear for the way he goes into it in depth, but I do love the social science, scientific experimentation, scientific validation of BJ Fogg. I think that Charles Dewey is a great introduction to the whole idea of habits and paints a much bigger, broader picture in terms of business and thinking and how it's been applied and used. So just to finish off some more specific examples of how I've used it. So I want to go back to BJ Fogg's idea. Every morning I wake up, and this is the way BJ Fogg puts his recipe together. After I do something, I will do something, and to wire it in, I will do this. And I put it on a Post-it note and stuck it on my kind of chest of drawers that I see every morning. So after I wake up and stand in front of my chest of drawers, I will say, today's going to be a great day. And to wire it in, I will smile to myself. Now, the interesting thing about this is it kind of sets off a chain reaction through my day. And it doesn't matter what I'm feeling. It doesn't matter what I'm thinking. The action of standing there, when I stand there, and he says, get very, very specific about what you'll be doing. When I do that, I will say this small action, and that's why he calls it tiny habits. Start small. I will say, today's going to be a great day. And then I will smile to myself to wire it in. So it sounds kind of weird, but very, very simple. Starting tiny actually makes it very, very easy to do, very, very actionable. James Clear talks about very similar kind of idea about getting 1% better. 1% better over time ends up with this. I'm going to draw another virtual graph again. Kind of small improvements, and then suddenly it goes up. Exponential improvements. So small actions over time produce big results. That's something that James Clear talks about a lot. And the same kind of idea. There's a cue, there's a craving, there's a response, and then there's the reward. James Clear says there are the 4 laws of behavior change. So very easily, you can put those things together and start to implement new ways of doing things. Something that I've done is starting to think about how I exercise and exercising every day and refining my morning routine. So when I put on my workout clothes, I will come downstairs and do the workout from that day. So I've planned out what particular workout I'm going to do on what particular day, and I kind of follow the routine. James Clear also talks a lot about how you design your environment so that I always work out in the same area, the same way, the same place. This means it makes it much easier to actually feel good when I walk into a room and then actually I'm going to do that thing. So one specific area, one specific time that I make sure that I work out so that the whole thing becomes much easier, much like the structure: cue, craving, routine, reward. And of course, after that, I feel good having worked out. So those are some ideas. Those 3 authors. Have a think about how you could start small and keep going consistently to make big things happen. Apply the 3 ideas. Have a look at the three books I've mentioned: Cue, Routine, Reward, Charles Dewey's way of structuring a habit, and play with it, explore, see what you can come up with. And it's so simple that it's amazing what you can start creating to start applying habits in a really positive way to create good habits and remove bad habits. Thank you for listening and engaging with this episode of Self-Awareness is Your Secret Weapon. If you like what you've heard and you'd like to spend a bit more time thinking and taking action on the ideas and maybe slowing it down, then consider joining my email list. If you go to the URL in the corner, you should be able to see it there: selfawareness.jamesdesouza.com/secret weapon. That's self-awareness, all spelled out, .jamesdesouza, JamesDesouza.com/secret weapon, again, all spelled out. Then put your name and email address there, and you'll get some more information from me about thinking and applying these ideas in your life so that you can make the most of the world of self-development, one idea at a time, and take action in your own life.